What the hell is up, everybody? Louie back here again for UFC Austin. We finally got a good fight night. This card is absolutely loaded. Quick recap, at 275, I did all right. I needed Glover to win, and what a roller coaster. What a fight. But it is what it is. That fight, you know, I kind of felt like I won, even though I didn't. Whaley, she cashed big for me. I didn't want to come down to that one, but I laid some money on her, and she got it done. And it was a no-brainer, and I'm glad it worked out that way. And, you know, Valentina and Santos stayed away from that one. Crazy fight. Anyway, this week we got Calvin Kattar taking on Josh Emmett at 145 pounds, men's featherweight. Not necessarily a #1 contender shot, but they're right there. Whoever wins this fight is going to get a big fight next. And then you got Joe Lauzon taking on Cowboy Cerrone, the retirement fight. Who doesn't want to see that one? And then you got Kevin Holland and Joaquin Buckley in some big matchups to really stake their names in 185 and 170-pound division. So let's get right into it. The first fight of the night is pretty good. I'm pretty excited for this one, actually. 185 pounds men's middleweight. You got Roman DOLIDZE taking on DAUKAUS. DOLIDZE took on Laureano Staropoli his last fight. In the first round, he dips the overhand. He gets the double around the back against the fence. Doesn't do too much. Literally just holds him there. Second round, he gets a blast double, gets around the back. But he eats some hooks off a jab, but then he's able to get the double leg whenever Staropoli's opening up. And then he gets blitzed, but then he's able to get the clinch at the end of the second. Then in the third round, he stands in range. He's able to block the head kick. He gets the double whenever Staropoli throws a 1-2, and then he gets around his back standing, and he gets put in a guillotine, and then snap down to like a front headlock. But he's able to shoot through and get the single leg. But then he gets reversed with a body lock trip at the end, but it didn't matter. So pretty boring fight, but he secures it. And then DAUKAUS took on Jimmy Pickett his last fight. In the first round, he presses with the 1-2, gets a single on the fence, switches off to double, and then he's able to get in a half guard. And then back on the feet, he lands some hooks on the break, gets another double leg, doesn't let him rest. And then he's able to land some hooks. And so he hooks the leg when he's in half guard, and he's able to get the Darce, gets a submission with 1 second left to go in the round. Very impressive. DAUKAUS minus 240, DOLIDZE plus 200. Don't love the price, obviously, but I think DAUKAUS is on the incline. I really like what I saw out of him, and he's a finisher, so I like that. So I'm going to go with DAUKAUS, and then DAUKAUS submission plus 250. Not a bad play. DAUKAUS. Second fight of the night, 185 pounds, men's middleweight. You got Phil Hawes taking on WINN. Really excited for this one. WINN hasn't fought since December 2020, so I'm interested to see how he performs. Hawes took on Chris Curtis his last fight. In the first round, he stalks with the 1-2 from range. He lands a front kick and then a straight right and then a left hook, and then he lands a left knee to the body and then to the head. But then he's able to shoot, but he backs it. He fakes with the jab, then he kind of fakes his shot, but then he backs out, just trying to get Curtis thinking. But then he gets rocked with the overhand left as he's dipping into the body, going for a body hook, and then he eats a knee to the body, and it's good night. So he was pretty much lighting Chris Curtis up, and just got a little too overconfident, in my opinion. And then WINN took on Antonio Arroyo, December 2020. In the first round, he eats a kick, but he gets a blast double off the fence, but he's not able to hold him down. Then he catches a knee, and he's able to get the single leg takedown, and then he feints some hooks, and he gets the double, but Arroyo goes for a triangle attempt, but he's able to get out of there. But then back on the feet, eats a 1-2 in the pocket, and then he eats a face kick at the end of the round. And then the second round, he lands a double off of Arroyo's back kick, and then he dips the hook, and he's able to get the double, and he's able to get onto his back. Then in the third round, he gets a blast double, and he pressures to the cage, lands a 1-2. But then he eats a body hook, but he's able to get the double from space. And, you know, basically just take it down and let him up. And he got lit up a little bit, but he was able to win with the control. WINN plus 215. Phil Hawes minus 265. I'm going to go through WINN here. I think WINN eats a lot of shots, but for that price, I'm willing to bet that he can make it out of the first round. If he makes it out of the first round, I think WINN will be able to start taking him down. I know they both have wrestling backgrounds, but I think WINN is a better wrestler. It's more for the price, so I'm going for him. But my pick here is WINN. 135 pounds, men's bantamweight. Another fun one. You got Eddie Wineland taking on Cody Stamann. Both guys desperately need a win here. Wineland took on John Castaneda his last fight. In the first round, he landed a straight right from range. He presses with the 1-2-3 combination, but then he eats some straights as he's coming in. Then he eats a lead right hook and gets KO'd with a blitz. Toward the end of the round, not much there. Wineland just kind of can't take a shot. And then Cody Stamann took on Said Nurmagomedov his last fight. He eats a straight right and he in a back kick while he's pressing forward, but he gets on the single, but he gets whizzer kicked, and then he gets put in a guillotine and gets submitted within like a minute or something. So, you know, bad performance from him. But before that, he took on Rovdivashvili. I thought this was a really good performance from him. In the first round, he presses with some jabs, but he eats an uppercut. But he's able to stuff the single leg, and he goes behind. But then back on the feet, he lands a jab in the pocket. Second round, he gets the double off of the fence, but can't really hold him down there. And then he lands some body hooks in the pocket. Third round, he lands a jump knee off the fence, but then he walks into uppercut when he goes into the pocket. But he's able to stuff the double with the underhook and some ground and pound from guard. So, you know, I thought he did okay. Able to get a takedown or two on Merab, but, you know, Merab just outworked him. Cody Stamann, minus 500. Eddie Wineland, plus 400. This line's absolutely ridiculous, but, I mean, Eddie Wineland. I mean, Cody Stamann's not a power puncher, but Eddie Wineland's chin is gone. And I think Cody Stamann is better technically than Wineland. I'm going to go with Cody Stamann. But Cody Stamann by finish at all, sub or KO, is plus 140. I would definitely play that. My pick here is Cody Stamann. On to the fourth fight, 115 pounds, women's strawweight. You got Maria Oliveira taking on Gloria DePaula. Oliveira took on Tabitha Ricci her last fight. In the first round, she gets cut off on the cage, eats a right hook, but then she lands a straight right whenever she gets pressed, and then but her kick is caught and she gets taken down at the end of the round, for the remainder of the round. And then in the second round, she gets taken down to a full mount, but she eats some ground and pound. She's swinging her hooks a little too short and can't reach, and then she presses, but then she gets double leg. And then in the third round, she walks right into a double and just gets taken down. And then DePaula took on Diana Belbita her last fight. In the first round, she eats some body hooks and a 1-2 from range, but then she lands some lead hooks, but then she eats some overhands through the guard, but she's able to get the body lock takedown. Sorry, just a body lock. And then in the second round, she eats a straight to the body, and then she jabs, and then she backs out of range. She's taking a move, and then she has a high guard, but then she lands a 1-2-3 combination, and then she gets the underhook clinch against the fence. Then in the third round, her double attempt gets stuffed. She gets put in her front headlock, but then she's able to break out. She lands a straight and some hooks inside the pocket, but then she backs out, and then she dips the hook and then gets the body lock takedown, and then she's able to keep the clinch on the fence whenever Belbita is getting up and doesn't let it go, and I really like seeing that. Gloria DePaula, minus 260. Maria Oliveira, plus 220. The price is awful. I know it's lower level women's MMA, but I just think DePaula is going to be able to take her down and control her. Maybe get a finish, maybe not. I'm just going Gloria DePaula straight up. And then fifth fight on the card, 145 pounds, men's featherweight. You got Ricardo Ramos taking on Danny Chavez. Ramos took on Zabura Takugov his last fight. In the first round, he lands a leg kick, but he eats a 1-2, and then he eats some jabs at range, and then some left hooks, but then he lands a spin elbow toward the end. And then the second round, he gets countered with some straights off of his overhand shots, but then he lands a straight right in the pocket, but then he eats some overhands in return. And then in the third round, he sticks some moves and starts landing his overhand right. Then he reacts to the jab. Then he gets his back taken while he's standing. And then Danny Chavez took on Kai Kamaka his last fight. In the first round, he skirts the cage, gets a blast double, but he's unable to hold him down. But then he eats some leg kicks in space. And then in the second round, he lands a step in straight right, but he gets clinched. And then he eats some step in knees from Kamaka. And then in the third round, he defends the double on the fence with the underhook, but his double attempt gets stuffed on the cage, but then he lands some hooks in the firefight, but it doesn't really do too much. Danny Chavez, plus 235. Ricardo Ramos, minus 280. Again, I don't like the price, and I really don't have a great reason, but, I mean, Danny Chavez, I think it was a draw with Kai Kamaka, and Kai Kamaka isn't in the UFC anymore, and Ricardo Ramos had some good spots in his fight. I think that overhand over the jab is going to play a big factor. My pick here is Ricardo Ramos, and then Ricardo Ramos to win the fight to go the distance, minus 165. Danny Chavez had a finish. I like that. So my pick here is Ricardo Ramos, also a fight to go the distance. Sixth fight on the main card, 170 pounds. Sorry, on the prelims, 170 pounds, men's welterweight. You got Court McGee taking on Jeremiah Wells. Court McGee took on Ramiz Brahimaj's last fight. In the first round, he eats some jabs at range, but then he lands a short right to the clinch, and then a double off the fence, and he keeps the clinch. He's able to get mat returns. That's kind of his thing, keeping control. Then he drops him with the overhand right toward the end of the first. And then in the second round, he gets doubled, but he reverses, and he gets the double. He's able to get the double leg off of the fence. And then he lands a right over top of his jab. Then in the third round, he lands a double off the fence, gets in a full mount, and then gets his back with one hook. Kind of goes for a choke, but he only has one hook, so doesn't really fully commit. And then Jeremiah Wells took on Mike Mathia his last fight. Blood Diamond. In the first round, he lands a body lock on the fence. He gets the lift takedown to the back, one hook, lands some ground and pound. Then he gets the RNC submission, no chokes. Not super impressive because Mattia isn't a grappler. Then he had 3 MMA fights. Jeremiah Wells plus 100, Court McGee minus 120. I thought this was interesting. I'm going to go with Jeremiah Wells. I think he has good power. I think his wrestling is going to be up to par with Court McGee's. I think it might come down to a dogfight, maybe a coin flip. I want to go with a little bit of value. My pick here is Jeremiah Wells. On to the co-main event of the prelims, 125 pounds. Women's flyweight, you got Jasmine JASUDAVICIUS taking on Natalia Silva. JASUDAVICIUS took on Kay Hansen her last fight. In the first round, she gets clinched to the fence, but she's able to reverse the clinch. Then she gets some step-in hooks at range, but she's able to stuff the double and get the trip takedown. And then in the second round, her kick is caught, and she gets taken down with the single, but she uses the overhook and pushes off the wall, and she's able to reverse the position. But then back in space, she stuffs a double, and then she clinches with the body, gets a body lock takedown. Then in the third round, she lands a straight right from range. She lands some jabs in the pocket, but she eats some overhands. But then she eats some check lefts. But then toward the end, she gets a tie clinch and lands some knees to put a good stamp on the round. And then Natalia Silva took on Jose Mara in 2019. In the first round, she swings wild in the pocket. She gets the clinch, but she gets reversed. But she uses the overhook and then gets the body lock trip, and then back at space, she lands a body kick, and then she lands a 1-2 in the pocket. In the second round, she lands a body kick at range. She lands some hooks at range, and she pumps the jab in circles. Then she lands a right cross whenever she gets pressed, and then she catches the kick, and she's able to get the takedown at the end of the round. Then in the third round, she lands a front kick 1-2. Then she circles, lands a 1-2, and then a head kick. Natalia is plus 195, and Jasmine minus 230. And lower level women's MMA, and then you got a woman who hasn't fought in a long time, making her UFC debut, so it's kind of tricky. Huge underdog, but I don't know, man. I'm just going to go with who I feel confident in, despite the line. Don't really know any props. My pick here is Jasmine JASUDAVICIUS. I just think that layoff is too much, and I think she's a solid fighter. The main event of the prelims, 135 pounds, huge banger. Adrian Yanez taking on Tony Kelly. Yanez took on Randy Costa he took on Davey Grant his last fight, and that was a back and forth war, but they both took on Randy Costa relatively recently, so I'm going to look at that one. In the first round, he gets pressed, eats a head kick, then eats some jabs on the fence and a 1-2, but then he eats some jabs, but he finally lands over top of Randy's jab, then he eats a head kick at range. Then in the second round, he pressures towards the cage, pumps his jabs, then he jabs right cross, and then he lands some body hooks and then uppercut TKO, just kind of unloads on him, and just kind of let Randy Costa run himself out. And then Randy Costa fought Tony Kelly after the Yanez fight. In a Tony Kelly fight, in the first round, he presses with some 1-2s and kicks, and then he gets clinched, and he gets some body shots from Randy, but then he's able to reverse the clinch position. And then he presses forward, slips some shots, and the body kicks. And then in the second round, he lands an underhook, and he's able to reverse the clinch. And then he eats a head kick and uppercut on the clinch break, but he lands some knees in the plum tie. And then he hips him over into half guard and lands some elbows and just ruthless elbows TKO. So basically, Randy Costa is kind of a one-round fighter. And I just kind of wanted to compare them one for one, how they look against the same opponent. Tony Kelly plus 240, Adrian Yanez minus 285. Big line here. I just really have a lot of faith in Adrian Yanez. I think over time, he's going to be able to wear Kelly out. I think Kelly's kind of a front runner as well. And I think Yanez will be able to keep him off him with the jab. I think he'll be able to maintain distance. The line's really crazy, but I just think Yanez has a lot more to offer than Tony Kelly does, so I'm going to take him. And then the prop over 2.5, I think that's pretty easy, minus 130. I like that one. My pick here is Adrian Yanez. First fight on the main card, 185 pounds. Julian, the Cuban Missile Crisis Marquez, taking on Gregory Robocop Rodriguez. Banger City. Marquez took on Sam Alvey his last fight. This was a while ago. In the first round, he lands a right hook on the fence. Then he lands a straight to the body. He rocks him with the 1-2, but he eats some hooks while he's coming in. But then in the second round, he gets pressed and he eats a right hook. And then he lands some left hooks over to the top. And then he drops him, and he's able to get the rear naked choke, no hook submission. So pretty impressive. Sam Alvey, gives a lot of people trouble early on that people don't really talk about. And then Gregory Rodriguez took on Armen Petrosyan in his last fight. In the first round, he pressures towards the cage, lands an overhand right, but then he eats some jabs at range. Then in the second round, he lands some right crosses against the fence. He eats a head kick and an overhand whenever he gets pressed, and he gets pressed back though. But then he eats a left hook off of his straight, and he gets rocked. But then he's able to get the blast double toward the end. And then in the third round, he pressures with some hooks, and then a head kick, and he rocks him, and then he uses the head and arm takedown, and then takes his back, and then he rolls through with the knee bar, kind of like the Suliev stretch, but he doesn't get it, and then he tries the rear naked choke. Can't get that one either. But then back on the feet, he gets pressed with some hooks, and then he eats some body kicks, and he really hurt Petrosyan there toward the end. I think it might have been an error to roll for that knee bar, but it is what it is. Gregory Rodriguez minus 175, Julian Marquez plus 150. I just think Rodriguez is going to be able to land the bigger shots. I think his wrestling defense is solid. I think Marquez might have to catch him in a submission. If they bang, I like Gregory Rodriguez. But I can't really count Marquez out, so if he wins, I'm not going to be super shocked. The line isn't too huge. My pick here is Gregory Rodriguez. Second fight on the main card should be a fun one. Should be relatively close. 155 pounds. Damir Ismagulov taking on Garam KUTATELADZE. Ismagulov took on Rafael Alves his last fight. In the first round, he gets blitzed and dropped, but he's able to escape the guillotine, and then he lands some body shots. In the second round, he presses with some jabs at range off of Alves' right hook, and then he lands a body kick, and then he drops him with the overhand right, a left, and then an uppercut, and he's able to stop the shot and get on top. Then in the third round, he lands a double off of his jump knee, and then he gets pump-tied and eats the knees, though, and then he eats a back kick at range at the end, but controlled the majority of the fight. And then Garam KUTATELADZE took on Mateus Gamrot in his last fight. In the first round, he gets taken down with the low single, but then he uses the leg lock pass to get up. And then in the second round, he drops him with the overhand right off of his kick, and he's able to stuff the double on the fence. And then he lands an uppercut and uses the butterfly guard to get up from the double. And then he gets doubled off of a kick, and he tries omoplata. Doesn't get it, obviously. Then in the third round, he lands a straight right, eats a jab as he comes in, but he gets doubled, and he gives his back on the cage. And then he throws a hook and gets doubled off of that. Line's relatively close here. KUTATELADZE plus 150, Ismagulov minus 175. I just think Ismagulov is going to have the better control. I think Garam might have a little bit more power, but I think as the fight goes on, Ismagulov is going to be able to take him down, or at least hold him against the fence and land some shots from there. I wouldn't be surprised either way. A relatively close line, but my pick here is Damir Ismagulov. 185 pounds. Third fight on the main card. You got Joaquin Buckley taking on Albert DURAEV. It's a big spot for either guy. DURAEV gets a win over Buckley, big name, and Buckley gets a win over tough grappler like DURAEV. Then he's going to be legitimate in this weight class. Buckley took on Abdulrazak Alhassan his last fight. In the first round, he gets a blast double one press, and he times his right hand, and he skirts the cage, and then he's able to get the blast double. He swings a hook, but he eats the right hook in return. But then he lands his uppercut, gets countered with the left hook. And then in the second round, he gets a body lock trip on the fence, and then back on the feet, he's able to get inside. He picks his shots, lands some hooks against the fence, and then he dips, and he lands to the body, and then he lands a knee, but he eats an elbow in the clinch, but he gets a blast double off of the break. And then in the third round, he gets taken down with the overhook trip, and he eats a hard right, but then he gets clinched and trip, and he tries an escape, but he gets mat returned, and then he kind of gives his back, and he tried a couple times to get up, but he kind of just knew he wasn't going to, and kind of conceded that round, in my opinion. And then Albert DURAEV took on Roman Kopylov his last fight. In the first round, he eats some hooks as he's trying to get his shots off. Then he lands a body kick at range, but he eats a jab and a 1-2 inside the pocket. Then in the second round, he gets dropped with the left hook, but he's able to get the double off the fence into full mount, lands some hammer fists and elbows, really nasty. Then he tries a rear naked choke at the end, doesn't get it. Then in the third round, he stalks with some hooks, and he shoots on the fence, but he's not able to finish the takedown. But then he walks into a hook back in space, but then he eats some jabs and a 1-2. But then he eats a hook, and his double attempt gets stuffed, but he gets doubled off the fence, and then eats some ground and pound at the end. Line's pretty wide here. Albert DURAEV minus 230, Joaquin Buckley plus 195. Honestly, I'm kind of leaning DURAEV, but for that price, 200 basically for Joaquin Buckley, who's got power, who's got wrestling, who's got decent wrestling defense. I think Buckley might be a front runner, and he might concede a third round, possibly. But for 200, I think Buckley can bank 2 rounds, or at least make one of them competitive and bank one. I mean, Buckley's got the power advantage, obviously, and I think he'll be able to defend a takedown or two. My pick here is Joaquin Buckley. We'll see how it goes, though, but I just cannot pass up that price. The feature fight on the main card, 170 pounds, Tim Means taking on Kevin Holland. Kevin Big Mouth Holland. Tim Dirty Bird Means taking on Kevin Big Mouth Holland. There we go. Oh, man, this is a great fight. Kevin Holland kind of slow playing his change to 170, but Tim Means is no joke and a tough opponent, and will definitely have Kevin Holland some credibility, and Tim Means will get the name value if he beats Kevin Holland. Tim Means took on Nicholas Dalby his last fight. In the first round, he lands a head kick, but he hits some punches in the clinch, but he lands in the clinch, but and then he lands a lat drop whenever he gets pressured in. Really nice, really slick. But then he lands a leg kick and then a left to the body, and then he drops him with the 1-2. And then the second round, he stuffs the single attempt, but he eats some hooks and he counters with the left body hook, but then he eats a body kick at range, but then he lands a left cross and he backs out, but then he lands a head kick when he gets pressed in the clinch, and he lands some elbows, and then he drops him with the leg kick, and then it gets in the front headlock and spins around, gets on top. So he just kind of hips him over and gets on top into like full guard. Then in the third round, he eats a head kick, but he gets rocked with the straight right as he's coming into the pocket, and then he gets clinched. Then he pummels and he gets the clinch, and he tries to get the single, but can't get it toward the end of the fight. And then Kevin Holland took on Alex Cowboy Oliveira his last fight. In the first round, he lands some leg kicks, but he gets pressed with 1-2s from Cowboy. His kick gets caught and he eats a 1-2. Then he eats another 1-2. And then in a leg kick, but he rolls for an ankle, kind of like an Imanari, but it wasn't very good. But then back on the feet, he lands a right cross, but he walks into some straight shots from Cowboy. Then he eats some leg kicks, and then he gets wobbled, but he gets mat returned, and then he gets put in a rear naked choke. So not a great first round, but it's whenever Kevin does that thumbs up, so he knew he was okay. But then in the second round, he pulls it all together, and he feints a kick, and he drops him with the straight right, and then gets a TKO with elbows, just swarms on him, no mercy. I really like to see that. He's figuring things out in the first round, lost it, comes back, destroys him. So I really like seeing that. Kevin Holland, minus 285. Tim Means, plus 240. You know, I think this line's disrespectful to Tim Means, but I really think Holland's going to pull it out, especially as the fight goes longer. I think it all comes down to Holland's wrestling defense. Tim Means isn't the greatest wrestler, but he's got some decent wrestling capabilities. I think Holland will be able to stuff it enough times to keep it on the feet, and I think when he's at range, I think he can pick him apart at range. It's just a matter of if Means can get that takedown or not, and I'm going to bet that Holland will be able to defend. So my pick here is Kevin Holland, minus 285. I know how that sounds, but you want to go under 2.5 for plus 100 even money. I like that. But Kevin Big Mouth Holland. On to the co-main event of the evening, 155 pounds, Donald Cowboy Cerrone taking on Joe Lauzon. Scheduled for about a month ago, and I picked Cerrone originally because he's been active. Lauzon's been off for about 2.5 years, but now Cowboy pulled out because of food poisoning, which I've never really heard of, and I don't know, I'm just getting a feeling that Lauzon has as good a shot as anybody. The line's plus 140. And, you know, I already did the tape study for this, but it's one of those things you kind of just got to pick somebody and maybe go with your gut. And I like that line on Lauzon. I think it should be an even fight, and plus 140, a lot of value there in my opinion. And then Joe Lauzon by submission, plus 600. I think that's playable. My pick here is Joe Lauzon. Don't think too much about it, just bet it. On to the main event of the evening. You got a true banger here. One that's important for the division, 145 pounds, men's featherweight. You got Calvin Kattar taking on Josh Emmett, and I'm really excited for this one. Calvin Kattar, you know, he had that tough beating against Max Holloway, so he's not immediately in the title picture. But if Josh Emmett beats Kattar, I think he might be next up for a title shot. And also you got Max and Volk, number 3, coming up soon. So the division's moving. And, you know, trying to get through their logjam problem and trying to find another contender. But regardless of all that, this is a banger. Josh Emmett has got power like a truck, and Calvin Kattar has got volume for days, toughness, tenacity, grit. Can't ask for much more. Anyway, Calvin Kattar took on Giga Chikadze his last fight. In the first round, he pressures from range, eats some jabs and body kicks. Then he slips the head kick and he gets the mat return, arm triangle attempt, but then they scramble and he's able to get to his back. And, you know, Calvin Kattar's not a wrestler, but he saw an opportunity to use his wrestling when Giga turns back to him. So, also has that intelligence there. Then in the second round, he eats some body kicks, but he walks into some straights and hooks. Then he eats a jab in the pocket, but he lands some hooks. Then he lands a knee to the head and then a left hook. But he slips the hook and lands the uppercut. But then he gets out of range of Giga's hooks. One of these in the pocket, but he eats left hook and then a kick. But then in the third round, he stalks with the 1-2 inside the pocket, and then he lands a straight right. He eats a 1-2 while he's standing in the pocket. But then he dips the hook and he shoots a single. Doesn't get it, but gets Giga thinking. Then he lands a counter left hook, but he eats some hooks in return. But then he eats a straight right off of Giga's hook. Then the fourth round, he lands some jabs, lands an uppercut, and then he rocks him with a lead elbow. Fifth round, more of the same. Kattar really just took control of his entire fight, in my opinion. Then Josh Emmett took on Dan Ige, his last fight. Really close fight. In the first round, he stalks and he drops him with the overhand right away. But then his back on his feet, his knee attempt gets caught and he gets taken down, but he swims out and he's able to get on top to end the round. Then in the second round, he stuffs his shot and puts him in a front head lock position. Then he gets rocked to the left hook while he's pressing. But then he lands an uppercut and then a 1-2, but he misses the hook and then eats a counter right from Ige. Then in the third round, he eats a jab at range. Then he lands a hook and a straight right off of Ige's hook. And then he lands a jab, but he gets pressed, eats an uppercut. And, you know, Ige was really in that fight. Emmett, more of a front runner, but he can carry throughout the fight. But he's going to be most dangerous in the first round, in my opinion. Josh Emmett, plus 195. Kattar, minus 230. Line's off. I don't like the line. Again, I just think, you know, Calvin Kattar's been in numerous 5-round fights. And Josh Emmett, this is his first 5-round fight right there. I think that's a reason to go for Kattar. And, you know, Kattar can take a shot. I know Holloway doesn't have the greatest power on the planet, and that fight probably should have been stopped earlier than what it was, but Kattar can take a beating. He's not going to back down. If he gets rocked, I think he'll be able to clinch or be able to recover. I like Calvin Kattar. I think Josh Emmett, first couple rounds, might give Kattar some trouble, but as the fight goes on, I just see Kattar lighting him up, keeping range. I don't really see anybody going for a takedown, but I think Kattar might be able to get inside the pocket, land a couple, back out. I think the speed's going to be a big factor for him as well. So, going for Calvin Kattar, minus 230, a little pricey, but Calvin Kattar, by decision, plus 130. I really like that one. He might get a finish, but, you know, 5-round featherweight fight, I think that's a decent bet. And then if you want to go over 4.5 at all, minus 150, I think that's a good bet too. All right, guys, I appreciate you guys following me. Okay week last weekend. You know, I did all right. I really thought Glover was going to win, so I put a lot on that one, plus 170. I thought that was the bet to make, so it is what it is, but I appreciate everybody following me. Leave a comment. Check out the description, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, all that stuff. Follow me. If you guys got a parlay, let me know about it. Got any questions, let me know. I'll be here for it. This is a really good card. I'm really excited for it. Things are finally starting to heat up here. No more Apex for a while, so really pumped about that. Appreciate you guys. Let's see some violence. Let's see some stars being born, and let's see some profits. Thanks, everyone.